Okay, welcome in one and all. I'm now going to review all of Saturday's games, the teams I picked to win, and the actual results of said game. So, starting with the early afternoon game in Canada's national capital, the Ottawa Senators were hosting the Detroit Red Wings. I did predict that Ottawa would win, but it was not meant to be. 5-2 was the final from I think they're called the Canadian Tire Center, if I'm not mistaken. Teams change their arena names all the time, so I guarantee I'll probably screw up even if I were to try to guess where a certain home team plays. So Jake Sanderson would kick things off for the Senators in the first on a power play goal with just under 4 minutes to go, or just over 3 minutes to go in the game. Uh, Assisted by Brady Kachuk and Josh Norris. Shane Gostisbehere would then tie things up about a minute and 20 seconds later or so on a power play goal of his own, assisted by Dylan Larkin and David Perron. So it was 1-1 heading into the second period. And in that second period, it took about 4 minutes into the frame for Joe Velino to get on the goal sheet, I should say, assisted by assisted by Fisher. I do apologize. So it was 2-1 for the Red Wings at that point. David Perron would then add a power play goal with just over 5 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Larkin and Seider. So it was 3-1 for the Red Wings heading into the third and final frame. Less than 30 seconds into that third period, Dylan Larkin would get a power play goal from Gostisbehere and Seider, increasing their lead to 4-1. And then Joe Velino would get his second goal of the game, an even strength goal with just over 7 minutes into the frame, assisted by Sprong. So it was 5-1 at that point. Riley Gregg would give the Senators their second goal of the game, but it was too little too late at that point. An even strength goal from Joseph and Chichurkin. So 5-2 was the final from Detroit. Sorry, 5-2 was the final from Ottawa in favor of Detroit. So the Red Wings are now sitting at 3-1-0 on the season, while the Senators have fallen to 2-3-0. Our next matchup takes place. Where are we? In the team I cheer for, La Belle Province, Quebec. So we have the Montreal Canadiens, and they were playing host to the Washington Capitals. I did predict that Montreal would get the victory. It was almost a blown victory, to say the least. They had a 2-goal lead heading into the third, and the Capitals would end up tying it up. It took overtime to decide a winner, but I'll get to those results in just a moment. So Sean Monahan would kick things off in the first, just over a minute to go in the first, actually, on a power play goal from Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. So it was 1-0 for the Habs after one. Brendan Gallagher would get his first of this season, assisted by Sean Monahan and Tanner Pearson. That was just with just over 10 minutes to go in the second period. So it was 2-0, as I said prior, for the Canadiens heading into the third and final frame, where Dylan Strome would get 2 goals of his own, both on the even strength. So 11 minutes into the frame, he would decrease the lead to 2-1, assisted by Ovechkin and Phillips. And then Dylan Strome, with just about 2 minutes to go, would score again, assisted by Kuznetsov and John Carlson. So it was 2-2 heading into the overtime frame. So when you get into overtime, you're guaranteed at least 1 point, whether you win or lose. Obviously, if you win, you get the extra point. So Cole Caulfield would score with just under a minute into the frame, assisted by Suzuki and Matheson. So the Canadiens would prevail and get the victory. They have now improved to 2-1-1 on the season so far, while the Capitals are off to a not so great start, sitting at 1-2-1. Our next matchup takes place in Arizona, where we have two teams that used to be in the same division, but I believe when I did my preview yesterday, I explained how one team got moved to the Central. So the Arizona Coyotes, who are now part of the Central Division, and the Anaheim Ducks, who are part of the Pacific Division, took to the ice on Saturday. I did predict that Arizona would get the victory, and it was a narrow victory. 2-1 was the final score. Jason Zucker would kick things off in the first with just over 2 minutes to go in the frame on a power play goal from Valimaki and Machuri. So it was 1-0 for the Coyotes heading into the second frame, where Clayton Keller would increase the lead with just under 6 minutes to go. An even strength goal from Schmaltz and Jersey. 2-0 for the Coyotes heading into the third and final frame. And with just under 8 minutes into the frame, Frank Vitano will get a power play goal from Jacob Silverberg and Adam Henry to decrease the lead to 2-1, but they were not able to get another goal to tie it up. So it was 2-1 was the final score. So the Coyotes are now sitting at 3-2-0, while the Ducks are sitting at 1-3-0. Our next matchup takes place in New York between two teams from New York. Where we have the New York Islanders, who went into Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Sabres. I did check off the Islanders to give the victory. It was not meant to be. The Sabres got a 3-1 final. So 3-1 win, I should say, from Buffalo. And now it's not letting me load up the scoring summary for some reason. So I'll see if I can just read off who scored. Jeff Skinner would kick things off for the Sabres, make it 1-0. Again, I have no idea if it was an even strength or power play goal. For some reason, it just won't let me load onto the scoring summary. Samuelson would increase the lead to 2-0 for the Sabres. Dylan Cousins would make it 3-0. And then Dobson would get on the board for the Islanders to make it 3-1. And that's where the game would stand. So the Sabres are now sitting at 2-3-0 on the season, while the Islanders are sitting at 2-1-1 thus far. Our next matchup takes place in the state of Florida, where we have the Florida Panthers, who were playing host to the Vancouver Canucks. I did predict that Florida would get the victory in this one, but unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out that way. Let's just see if the scoring summary is going to actually load up for this one. Here we go. So Quinn Hughes would kick things off in the first on a power play goal, with just about 11 minutes into the frame, assisted by JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. Barkov would then tie things up about 20 seconds exactly later to make it 1-1. So it was that same score, I should say, heading into the second period. Carson Soucy would get a power play goal just over 10 minutes into the frame, assisted by Connor Garland. And then Elias Pettersson would score about 35 seconds after that, assisted by Kuzmenko and Mikheyev to increase the lead to 3-1 for the Canucks heading into the third period. Sam Reinhart would get 2 goals to tie things up. His first goal came at about the 6-minute mark, an even strength goal from Rodriguez and Barkov, and then he would score about 8 minutes later with 14 minutes. With about just under 6 minutes to go in the game, he would score an even strength goal again, assisted by Rodriguez and Mahura. And then I want to say a minute and 2 seconds later, Andrei Kuzmenko would get an even strength goal from Di Giuseppe and JT Miller. And then Brock Besser would score with about just over 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go to increase the lead to 5-3 in favor of the Canucks. Getting all tongue-tied. They are now sitting at 3-2-0 on the season, while the Florida Panthers have fallen to 2-3-0 so far. The next matchup takes place again in the state of Florida, but obviously a different team. So we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are taking on a foe in the Toronto Maple Leafs. I did predict that the Maple Leafs would get the victory in this one. The one thing I did notice, and I have noticed since even last postseason, is that it doesn't matter if you have a 2-goal lead. There's no such thing as a safe lead, as the Lightning did have a 2-goal lead in the game, but just like last postseason against this same group of Maple Leafs, they were not able to hold it. 4-3 was the final. It took until overtime to decide a winner. So the Leafs did come away with the victory, and I will pull up the scoring summary right away. So William Nylander would kick things off in the first, which is over 4 minutes into the frame, assisted by Matthew Knies and John Tavares. An even strength goal. Nikita Kucherov would score on a power play with just over 6 minutes into the frame, assisted by Point and Hedman. Alex Barre-Boru, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, would then score just under 4 minutes later, assisted by Kucherov and Point to make it 2-1 for the Lightning. And then Kucherov would get his second goal of the game, once again on the power play, assisted by Sergachev and Stamkos. So it was 3-1 after the first period. No goals were scored in the second, but then this is when Toronto made their little comeback. Matthew Knies would get his goal, get the second goal of the game for the Leafs, assisted by Max Domi, with just under 8 minutes to go in the frame. And then I want to say just about 5 minutes or so and change, Knies would get his second goal of the game, assisted by Domi and Camp. So the game went into overtime. Both teams were guaranteed a point. And then John Tavares would end it with just under a minute to go in the frame, assisted by Nylander and John Klingberg. So 4-3 was the final from Tampa. So Toronto's now sitting at 3-2-0 on the season, while the Lightning are sitting at 2-2-2 thus far on the campaign. The next matchup has, if this phone can load, come on. Oh, no, it's went back to the main screen. Oh no. This freeze? This is a bad time for this phone to freeze considering I'm in the middle of filming. Come on. This would be a great time to have that Jeopardy music playing. Do, 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 do. Come on. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to restart the app. It's freezing on me. Not a good time to freeze. Come on. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's it. I don't want game highlights or game recap. I just want this thing to load. Come on. Back. Come on. Wait. Go back. It's not that complicated. Here we go. Come on. Siren. Something's happening outside. Come on. Okay, I guess the app just shut down. That's great. Okay, let's try opening it back up and see if it doesn't crash again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only have 9 more games to cover. No big deal. Come on. Let's go. And here we go. Finally loaded back up. So our next matchup, after seeing the Leafs and Lightning logo on the screen for quite some time, takes place in Illinois. Here we go. Where we have the Chicago Blackhawks, who finally played their first game at home, taking on the defending Stanley Cup champions and the Vegas Golden Knights. I did predict that the Golden Knights would get the victory, and they sure did. And they're off to, I think it was, read a stat last night, said they're off to one of the best starts from a defending Stanley Cup champions perspective in quite some time. So 5-3 was the final. Connor Bedard would kick things off in the first with a power play goal, a minute and a half in. So I'm sure the crowd was nuts to see him score his first home goal of the season, assisted by Taylor Hall. So it was 1-0 for the Blackhawks at that point. And about just under 3 minutes later, William Karlsson would get a power play goal of his own, assisted by Cotter and Korzak. So it was 1-1 heading into the second period. Jonathan Marchessault would increase the lead to 2-1, assisted by Eichel and Theodore with 7 minutes and 30 seconds into the frame. An even strength goal. And then Reese Johnson would score about a minute and 20 seconds later. Another even strength goal from Connor Murphy and Ryan Donato. So it was 2-2 heading into the third period. Nick Raw would score 13 seconds into the frame, assisted by Kolster and McNabb. So it was 3-2 at that point. Mark Stone would increase the lead at the 13-minute and 47-second mark of the period from Mick Amadio and Chandler Stevenson. And then Paul Cotter would increase the lead on a power play goal with just under 4 minutes to go, assisted by Amadio and Martinez. Corey Perry would score with about 15 ticks left in the game, assisted by Foligno and Koraczynski. But at that point, it was too little too late. So now the Blackhawks are sitting at 2-4, while the Vegas Golden Knights are off to an amazing start. Still have yet to lose 6-0 on the season so far. Next matchup takes place in Texas. where we would have the Dallas Stars, and they would play host to the Philadelphia Flyers. I did predict that Dallas would get the victory in this one, and they did. It was narrow, and it could have gone either way, to be honest with you. It took until overtime to decide a winner. 5-4 was the final score. In the first, Wyatt Johnson would kick things off just about 4 minutes into the frame, an even strength goal from Jamie Benn to make it 1-0. Tyler Seguin would score with almost 4 minutes later, an even strength goal from Ryan Sutter and Mikko Heiskanen. Joel Farabee would score not even 3 minutes after that to decrease the lead to 2-1, an even strength goal from Brink and Cates, and Travis Konechny would get a shorthanded goal with about 3.5 minutes to go, assisted by Cates as well. So it was 2-2 heading into the second period. Rue Pence got the lone goal for the Stars in the second period, just 30 seconds in, an even strength goal from Jason Robertson, and Joel Pavelski. So it's 3-2 for the Stars heading into the third and final frame. Jamie Benn would increase the lead about halfway into the second, assisted by Wyatt Johnson. So it was 4-2 at that point. Travis Konechny would then get another shorthanded goal, assisted by Sanheim and Scott Lawton at the 12-minute mark of the frame. And then I want to say less than a minute later, hell, even like 45 seconds later, Sean Walker would then tie things up from Zamula. Another shorthanded goal for the Flyers. So they seem to be playing pretty damn well when they have one less skater on the ice. 3 shorthanded goals on the night. Unreal. So went into overtime where Joe Pavelski ended up being the hero for the Stars. An even strength goal from Wyatt Johnson at the 2-minute and 13-second mark of overtime. So the Stars are now sitting at 3-0-1 on the season, while the Philadelphia Flyers are sitting at 3-1-1 so far. Not too bad. Our next matchup should take place in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. Just got to see if I can pull up the thing. Here we go. So yes, Minneapolis is our next destination, where we have 2 teams, and I believe I was kind of went on a bit of a, I don't know, it's kind of rambling on about these 2 teams yesterday, how they were one of the two newest teams to come into the league. This was back, I want to say back like 99, 2000. And obviously the Wild have had a little bit more success than the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I did predict the Wild to get this one, but the Blue Jackets came out on top. It took until overtime to decide a winner, so it was a close matchup, to say the least. 5-4 was the final from Minneapolis. So I'll just go over the scoring summary. There was this lone goal in the first. Justin Danforth would kick things off for the Blue Jackets. Even strength goal from Jiricek and Oliver. So it was 1-0 heading into the second period. Kent Johnson would increase the lead to 2-0, assisted by Sillinger at the 6-minute and 10 mark of the second frame. Dakota Mermis, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, scored about 1:11 after that to decrease the lead to 2-1, assisted by Marcus Johansson and Joel Eriksson Ek. And then Matt Zuccarello would tie things up about less than a minute after that, assisted by Ryan Hartman. So it was 2-2 heading into the third period. Jonas Brodin would give the Wild a 3-2 lead with just under 5 minutes into the frame. Joel Eriksson Ek would assist, as would Pat Maroon. Boone Jenner would tie things up about 3 minutes after that, assisted by Werenski and Severson. Adam Fantilli would increase the lead to 4-3 for the Blue Jackets, assisted by Perovov and Severson at the 5-minute mark and 5 minutes and 19 seconds, to be precise. I was on the power play goal. And then Marcus Johansson would score an even strength goal with just under 3 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Pat Maroon and Mermis. So it took until overtime, like I said, to decide a winner. Jake Roslovic would get the even strength goal from Johnny Gaudreau at the 3-minute and 7 mark of overtime. So the Columbus Blue Jackets, after that victory, are sitting at 3-2-0, while Minnesota is sitting at 2-2-1 so far. Where are we next off to? So we're off to Tennessee to take a look at the game between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, San Jose Sharks. So I did predict that Nashville would get the victory in this one, and they sure did. A massive 5-1 victory over the Sharks. Here's how the game went just a lone goal in the first. Samuel Fegmiu scored a power play goal with just under 3 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Nyquist and Carrier. In the second, Tomi Novak would score an even strength goal just over 2 minutes into the frame from Sherwood and Yossi. And then Kiefer Sherwood would increase the lead 12 seconds after that, an even strength goal from Evangelista, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, and Tyson Berry. So it was 3-0 for the Predators heading into the third and final frame. Tomi Novak would increase the lead to 4-0 with just under 3 minutes to go. Just under 3 minutes into the third, a power play goal from Nyquist and Parsinen. Thomas Hurdle would finally get the Sharks on the board. The first goal of the game, assisted by Ferraro and Kin Naichov, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, just over halfway into the frame. And then I want to say less than 2 minutes later, Luke Evangelista would then increase the lead back to 4, so it would be a 5-1 final. And Fabro did get an even strength goal. It was an even strength goal. Fabro had the assist on the fifth and final goal for the Predators. So the Predators after that are back to 500 at 3-3-0, while the Sharks are still looking for their first win of this campaign at 0-4-1 so far this season. Our next matchup takes place, I believe, in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, of all places. And I am correct. So we have the St. Louis Blues, and they played host to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I did circle that the Penguins would get the victory, but it was not meant to be. The Blues came away victorious in this matchup. 4-2 was the final score. So Brandon Saad would kick things off in the first, with just under 10 minutes to go in the frame, an even strength goal from Rob Thomas and Cairo. Malkin would tie things up late in the first with about 5 seconds to go, assisted by Chris Letang. So it was 1-1 heading into the second period. There were 2 goals scored in that second frame, both from the Blues. Jake Neighbors would get the go-ahead goal, 2-1, assisted by Kasperi Kapanen and Justin Falk at the 5 minute and 39-second mark of the second period, I should say, sorry. And then I want to say about a minute and a half after that, Colton Parayko would score an even strength goal from Torpachenko and Sundqvist. So it was 3-1 for the Blues heading into the third and final frame. Brandon Saad would increase the lead to 4-1, an even strength goal from Kapanen and Rob Thomas at I just want to say just under 5 minutes to go in the frame. And then about a minute and a half later, Radim Zahornan would score, assisted by Lars Eller and Dylan O'Connor. So 4-2 was the final from St. Louis. They are now sitting at 2-1-1 on the season, while Pittsburgh has fallen to 2-3-0 so far. The next matchup takes place, I believe, in Colorado. And I was right. So the Avalanche were playing host to the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think I made a bold thing yesterday saying that it'd be interesting to see these two teams play in the final, but who knows? It was a shootout to say the least. The Avalanche, I did predict them to win, and they sure did come away with a massive win. A lot of goals. 6-4 was the final from Colorado. So Jesperi Kotkaniemi would kick things off in the first with just under 4 minutes to go. An even strength goal from Newson and Drury. Ryan Johansson would tie things up on a power play with less than 6 seconds to go, assisted by McKinnon and Lehkonen. So it was 1-1 heading into the second frame. Logan O'Connor would get a shorthanded goal from Andrew Cogliano to increase the lead to 2-1. And then on another power play, Brent Burns would tie things up from Orlov and Noesen with just over 10 minutes to go in the frame. About a minute and 20 some odd seconds later, Michael Bunting would get an even strength goal from Nietzsche and Slavin. Frederick Olofsson would tie things up for the Avalanche, assisted by O'Connor and Byram. And that happened about just under a minute and 40 seconds. And then Arturi Lehkonen would then increase the lead for the Avalanche on a power play goal, which is, I want to say just under 6 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Johansson and Cale Makar. Nathan McKinnon would then get an even strength goal to increase the lead to 5-3. Lehkonen and Nishushkin would assist on his goal. And Mikko Rantanen would then make it 6-3 on a power play goal with about a minute and a half to go in the second. assisted by Cale Makar and Arturi Lehkonen. So 6-3 after the second period. Jacob Slavin would then get the Hurricanes a little bit closer at 6-4 with just under 8 minutes to go in the third. An even strength goal from Kotkaniemi and Seth Jarvis, but it was too little too late at that point. So the Avalanche are still perfect on the season, just like two other teams. They are sitting at 5-0-0 so far, and the Hurricanes have dropped back to 500. They are sitting at 3-3-0. So our next matchup takes place north of the border, where we have two teams that were struggling, to say the least, to get out of the gate. The Edmonton Oilers played host to the Winnipeg Jets. Both these teams came into this matchup sitting at 1-3 respectively, and obviously one team had to win and one team had to lose. The good news is for both these teams, they were both guaranteed a point, as this did take overtime to decide a winner. But unfortunately, if you're an Oilers fan, it didn't come out to your liking, as the Jets would get the overtime victory and secure their second win of the season. So I'll take a look at the scoring summary here in just a second. So Darnell Nurse would kick things off, an even strength goal about a minute and a half into the first, assisted by McDavid and Draisaitl. Evan Bouchard would then give the Oilers a 2-0 lead on a power play from Draisaitl and McDavid at about the 6 minute and 11 mark of the first. Josh Morrissey would then get a power play goal over halfway into that first period as well. DeMello and Barron would get the assists on the goal. So there was just the one goal that happened in the second, and that was from Vladislav Nevesenko, a shorthanded goal from Alex Iafallo, and that happened with about a minute and 40 seconds roughly to go in the second period. There were no goals scored in the third. As I mentioned, the game did go to overtime, where Mark Scheifele would get the game-winning goal with just over a minute and 7 seconds to go in overtime, assisted by Morrissey and Kyle Connor. So the Jets are sitting at 2-3-0 on the season, while the Edmonton Oilers have fallen to 1-3-1 to start the season. Not looking too good so far. Two more games to cover, I do believe. And the next matchup takes place in Seattle, where we have the Kraken, who came off their first win of the season, and they played host to the New York Rangers. And they should be coming up on your screen right away. So, as I said, the Rangers went into Seattle to take on the Kraken. I did predict that the Rangers would get the victory, and they sure did. 4-1 was the final score. So I'll just quickly go over the scoring summary. So Justin Schultz kicked things off in the first with just, I want to say, under 9 minutes to go. Even strength goal from Dumoulin and Tolvainen. So 1-0 for the Kraken. Arturi Panarin would then tie things up with just under 8 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Schittle. So it was 1-1 heading into the second period. Just under 7 minutes to go in the second period, Capo Caco would give the Rangers a 2-1 lead, assisted by Trouba and Miller. And then I want to say with just over 2 minutes to go, Alex Lafreniere would then increase the lead to 3-1, assisted by Chittle as well. So it was 3-1 for the Rangers heading into the third and final frame. Arturi Panarin would get his second goal of the game with 5 minutes and 30 seconds into that third period, assisted by Chittle and Miller. So both Chittle and Miller seem to have a pretty decent game, as they both had at least an assist, or in this case, Chittle had 3 assists in this game. So at least they got a couple multi-points games from those two guys. So 4-1 was the final. The Rangers are now sitting at 3-2-0 on the season, while the Kraken have fallen to 1-4-1 so far. And the last game from Saturday's busy schedule takes place in California, where we have one of the 3, I believe, undefeated teams still playing, or still playing. Yes. So we have the Boston Bruins heading into the Los Angeles Kings arena. I did predict the Bruins would get the victory in this one, and they did. They doubled up on the Kings. 4-2 was the final score. So the Bruins are still undefeated on their season. I will get to the record here in just a moment. There was just the one goal in the first, and that was a power play goal. David Pastrnak would score at the just under 7 minutes to go in that frame. assisted by Marchand and James Van Riemsdyk. So it was 1-0 for the Bruins after one. Alex Lafayette would get the Kings on the board to tie things up at one with just over 13 minutes to go in the frame. An even strength goal from Dubois and Kevin Fiala. Morgan Geekie would then give the Bruins a 2-1 lead with just over 5 minutes to go in the frame, assisted by Lucic and Forbort. And then, less than a minute after that, Brad Marchand would then increase the lead to 3-1, assisted by Pasternak and Forbort again. So it was 3-1 for the Bruins heading into the third period, where Marchand would strike yet again with just over 2 minutes to go in the frame. Even strength goal from Pasternak and Zaka. Carl Grundstrom would get a power play goal late in the third, which is about a minute and 10 seconds, assisted by Matt Roy and Trevor Lewis. But at that point, it was too little too late, as the final, like I said, was 4-2 for the Boston Bruins. So I'll just go over my picks real quick. So I did predict that I predicted Detroit, Montreal, Arizona, New York Islanders, Florida, Toronto, Vegas, Dallas, Minnesota, Nashville, Pittsburgh, Colorado, Edmonton, New York Rangers, and Boston. So I had 9 right and 6 incorrect. So I was 9-6 on that Saturday. Overall, I'm sitting at 46-33. So not too shabby. I'm still above 500 for my predictions so far on this young NHL season. As always, if you happen to tune into this entire video, thank you very much. If you are new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit that sub button. I'd be very grateful, very appreciative, and very thankful all in one. And as always, take care.